Hello, and welcome to the November 4th Sustainability Commission. It has the wrong date on the thing here, but anyway. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, iOS, and Android devices using a free app called Cablecast and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Glendale meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing at any time at glendaleca.gov/agendas. Please call 818-548-4673 4013 for program schedules. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that item is discussed. If you have questions about matters on the agenda or requests for assistance, please call the city clerk at 818-548-2090 during regular business hours.
Roll call. Chairperson Werner.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Pinkerton.
Here.
Commissioner Bazemore.
Here.
Commissioner Cartoonian.
Here.
Commissioner Chatarian. Excuse me. Ex officio Fay.
Here.
And ex officio Parks.
Here.
Next is
Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, we would like to acknowledge that we're holding this meeting in the city of Glendale in Tovagnar, the home and traditional lands of the Gabrielino Tongva people. We would like to pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, and to the Gabrielino Tongva communities who continue to be stewards of this land. Glendale's history did not begin with colonialism. Indigenous communities have lived in this area and have been stewards of this land for hundreds of years and numerous generations. We encourage our audience to learn more about the Tongva or Gabrielino Tongva community and about other indigenous communities in California and beyond. To get started, you can find a list of books at eglendalelac.org/Native American. And as this is Native American History Month, the Glendale Library Arts and Culture is celebrating Native American Heritage Month by hosting virtual author talks in November. These will be recorded too, in case you're not able to see them live. And at the Autry Museum, there will be a screening of 3 shorts, Academy qualified shorts by Indigenous filmmakers on November 19th at 6 p.m., followed by a discussion with the filmmakers. And they also have, of course, many ongoing exhibits that celebrate Native American art and culture. So we hope that everyone has a chance to avail themselves of one of the many activities in celebration of Native American History Month. And next agenda item.
posting of the agenda. The agenda for the November 6, 2025 sustainability meeting of the Sustainability Commission was posted October 31st, 2025 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Okay,
2, approval of minutes. 2A, approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held October 2nd, 2025.
Did anyone have any corrections, comments about the minutes? Can we have a motion for approving them?
Approve. I'll make a
Second?
motion to approve.
Second.
Chairperson Werner,
Yes?
Vice Chairperson Pinkerton,
Yes.
Commissioner Bazemore,
Yes.
Commissioner Cartoonian,
Yes.
Commissioner Chakarian.
Yes.
Number 3, board member staff comments.
Okay, does anyone have any comments at this time?
Just one. Under the Senate Bill 1383 about the organics diversion, the city has to meet certain procurement requirements too for recycled paper. And I've picked up several items of literature from different city departments recently. And it would be interesting to find out if they're using recycled content paper at the print shop here. And if they are, probably be helpful to put the logo printed on recycled paper just for public awareness. I know when I looked into this in LA, surprisingly a lot of printing papers, especially specialty papers, don't have any recycled content, which surprised me. But that would be helpful to find out if that's going on. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinkerton. We do actually have the data from the print shop on the types of purchasing, so we can share that with the Commission.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Pinkerton. Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, I was able to convince my manager at Starbucks we have an initiative at Starbucks where it's like grounds for your garden. So I convinced my manager to adopt it into our Starbucks. So basically we just bag grounds and people pick them up. So I think I'm gonna try to convince my manager to like talk with the other managers in Glendale and try to have them also adopt this program just overall so they can kind of lead the community in compost initiatives.
Great.
Question, like, who comes and picks it up? Is it residents?
Yeah, residents.
Oh.
Like a lot of people before we adopted the program, they would call in and ask for these grounds. So I was talking to my manager about it and she was like, yeah, I think it would be a good initiative. So basically like we just recycle the grounds and we put them in like the espresso bag that we get. We put them by the front door and people just take them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which Starbucks?
Yeah, Foothill and Castle.
Which one?
I work at Foothill and Castle, but I'm just trying to convince the other Starbucks to also adopt. Yeah. I think the bag,
Is it decaf or regular? Or
It's
is it
regular.
Cafe Verona or?
Somebody wanted to know, a friend of mine.
Okay, asking for a friend. Okay. Okay. So I had the little report to give for the water reclamation tour, so I guess we can go ahead with that. So I recently attended a water reclamation tour of the Las Virgenes Triunfo Pure Water Demonstration Facility and the Grace Napolitano Pure Water California Innovation Center. The first stop was the Las Virgenes Center. It's specifically designed to educate the public about the process of purifying the water and to also test out different types of equipment that might be used when they scale up to, full-scale recycling program. So when you first get there, you notice there's this WaterWise garden with lots of signage explaining what the different plants are to inspire people to put in their own WaterWise plantings. And of course, they can't do something like this by themselves. There's lots of other companies that were involved, from landscaping firms that did the WaterWise garden, for example, Corollos, which is a water engineering firm, and others. And there's this beautiful mural in the lobby when you first come in that was commissioned to depict the significance of water in our lives, everything from, food and industry and agriculture and so on. And it was done by an artist named M.B. Hanrahan, who's currently based in Ventura. And there was an informational mural as well, which explores the natural water cycle and compares that to the pure water cycle, which is basically an acceleration of the natural cycle. And it was very informative, and it was nice to have these kinds of graphics that were accessible to people of various, technical backgrounds and linguistic backgrounds and so on. So even if you didn't necessarily read English, I think you could get the idea just from looking at the graphics. And then there's a 3-step process, and step 1 is the ultrafiltration. And I deliberately took the photo to show the little kiosk in the foreground where there's a video is there that goes through what you're seeing, and then there's also something you can read to learn more about it. And then you notice the 3 vertical giant pipe things in the middle of the screen there, the white, the yellow, and the other white one. Those are filters that were made by 3 different manufacturers. So that's example of something that they're testing. They're seeing which one of these performs the best, so they would know which one they might prefer when they go to scale up. And these are just this whole section here was basically to show people, whether they're engineers or not, to try to help them understand the technology. And then the second step is the reverse osmosis. A lot of people are familiar with that because, people have RO systems in their homes, but these are much more industrial. They force water through these membranes that are so dense that only water molecules can pass through. And then the third step, they have UV light, so they take what would normally naturally happen from the sun, and then they recreate that, and then they add advanced oxidation, which is like chlorine and so on, to infect the water. So if anything gets past the first two phases, like viruses or something, they would be caught at this point. And then the second stop was the Grace Napolitano plant, which is a much larger one. It's, as you can see here, it's a huge facility. It's a working facility. It just has this one area that's currently in the environmental planning and review phase with the EPA. So right now, the water that they treat has to go back into the reservoir and be, treated again through their standard process until they get approved for a more direct consumption. And this is an idea of just how many of these reclamation programs are out there. And it's not that easy to read, but it gives you an idea. I drew a box around the two that we went to. The purple box there are the two that are in the Los Angeles area. And oops, I guess that's it. So that's weird. I had a group photo, but I guess it didn't make it in there. That's weird. Okay, well. So this isn't like a brand new thing. There's several of these are currently operating or about to be operating, and some are currently serving, households, while others are just recharging groundwater. So there's different types, but basically they're all responding to the same thing: the shortage of water of potable water anyway. So this is a step up from what you would see in at a irrigation, like the purple pipe kind of thing. This is a step up from that, where it's purified to the point that people can drink it. And if the group photo was there, you would see all of us standing there holding a glass of water, or some of them were actually holding beer cans because they make beer out of it, and then they, it's like good public relations, like here's a free beer, so it was very informative, and that's basically it. And I'd like to thank Chisholm and the others in the Glendale Water and Power who helped put on this program. Thank you.
Quick question though. So this was a tour you got to go on?
Yes, it was Council Member Kasakian, Council Member Brotman, and then several people from GWP, and then people from what they call the SWAG group, but the Sustainable Water
Advisory group.
Thank you. So many of them were there, and so we could ask questions and things like that. So yeah, it was there were probably around 25, 30 people, something like that. So we were all on a bus.
I imagine these are kind of like examples that this group is looking at as something that might be considered for Glendale, because of course this doesn't impact our water here, it seems like, right? These are other sites.
Yeah, it's mostly to let people know, what the technology is, so that, try to get past the ick factor of reusing water, and to remind people that water is already recycled. We're not drinking like brand new H2O molecules.
There is no new water.
Yeah, no such thing as new
water.
water. It's all like, whether it's a natural process of evaporation and condensation and all that, or a reservoir somewhere that, is part of nature or what have you. We'll hear a presentation about more of that. I didn't want to steal any of Chisholm's thunder, but I just wanted to share that this was happening, and they're exploring different options, but that particular, the Napolitano one, is looking for cities to partner with, to, once they get their EPA thing, like, who wants water, so, then they would, of course, put in pipes and things like that, so.
Very cool. Thank you.
Okay, so,
Item 4, oral communications. Discussions is limited to items within the jurisdiction of the Sustainability Commission. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Sustainability Commission members may question or respond to the speaker, but there'll be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff for investigation and report. We do have no cards and no telephone calls on this item at the moment.
okay. Public comment period is closed then.
5 action items. There is no action items at this meeting. 6 reports and information. Water Master Plan. I'd like to introduce Mr. Chisholm Obigolu, who's the AGM of Glendale Water and Power, to provide a presentation to the Commission today.
Yeah, thank you, David. And Chair Warner, you did such a great job, explaining the purification process. I think you can actually give this presentation. But really, as mentioned, my name is Chisholm Obigolu. I'm the Assistant General Manager of Water, and it really is a pleasure to be here. Every chance I get to talk about this very essential, precious resource, I hop on it. So I really appreciate that opportunity. So with that being said, I'd like to start with this simple fact, and that is the Glendale that we all work in and love and play in and live in cannot exist without supplemental water, right? And so what I mean by that is we do not have a sustainable source of local water supply here in Glendale. In fact, about 60 to 70% of the water we use here is imported from other parts of the state or the country. And that is what is shown on this map here. Firstly, we have the Los Angeles Aqueduct. This really is the first imported source into our region back in 1912. And it brings in water from the Owens Valley Basin about 260 miles northeast of here. In fact, if you're driving north on Highway 5, right around Sylmar, and you look to your right, you may recall seeing sort of a fountain-like water trickling down the mountain there. That is the entry port of the LA Aqueduct into our region here. And so today, we do not receive water from the LA Aqueduct. That is reserved solely for the city of Los Angeles. However, in 1928, we began to get water from the Colorado River through the Colorado River Aqueduct, and that's about 240 miles east of here. And then post-World War II boom in the 1960s, we really needed another mega water infrastructure project due to the influx of folks into the region, the state, as well as into Glendale. And that came in the form of the State Water Project System. And that's about 700 miles north of here from the Northern Sierra Nevada mountains. And so collectively, this, again, accounts for about 60 to 70% of our water. The remaining 30% is local groundwater. We do operate out of 2 groundwater basins here. And we have a teeny bitty 5% that is recycled water, and that is the purple pipe that Chair Warner was referencing. And so the problem is that these imported supplies are significantly challenged by the impacts of our evolving climate, right? And so what you're looking at here is photos of Lake Mead. Lake Mead is the most significant reservoir on the Colorado River system and is the largest man-made reservoir in the country. In the 24 years between 2000 and 2024, Lake Mead has decreased in levels of about 146 feet and counting, right? And so again, that speaks to the alarming rate that this reservoir continues to deplete this precious resource. The story is pretty much the same on the State Water Project System, and this is the one that brings water from Northern California. These are photos of Lake Oroville. And Lake Oroville is a key reservoir on this system. If you've been on the Metropolitan Water District tour, you may recall seeing Lake Oroville. This illustrates how quickly conditions can evolve on this system. Okay, in the 2 years between 2019 and 2021, we went from extreme wet conditions to extreme drought conditions. And just 2 months after that, in July of 2021, we found ourselves in exceptionally drought conditions. And so that really speaks to the variability that we continue to see on these systems, right? So we rarely get rainfall. And when we do, they're few and far in between, and they come in the form of what is known as atmospheric rivers. An atmospheric river is when you get a substantial amount of rainfall in a very short amount of time. And so that leads to excess flooding or the inability for us to just capture and store that water. So we lose a lot of that to the Pacific Ocean. So in addition to all of this, another threat to our imported supplies is seismic uncertainty, right? We live in a seismically active state. We have a number of active fault lines throughout our state, the most prominent being the San Andreas Fault. And that is what is shown here on this map in yellow. The San Andreas Fault is capable of producing about an 8.3 magnitude earthquake, sometimes within the next 10 to 25 years, perhaps even sooner. And one thing I want to point out here is that every single one of our imported supplies has a direct crossing to this fault line. And so it's not a matter of if, but when this occurs, we could potentially lose about 60 to 70% of our water supply in a matter of minutes, if not seconds. Okay? And so this master plan will actually look to accomplish three things. Number one is to increase our local climate resilient water supply, but also to address our aging infrastructure. We have infrastructure that has been in place since 1928 or so almost 100 years. And so we have to develop a capital project that will invest into this infrastructure. And we have to do all this while remaining sensitive to the potential cost impacts this will have on our customers, which can be a challenge in its own. And so as part of this, we'll also be developing what we're calling a COSA, or a cost of service analysis, which is a 5-year funding plan to accompany this master plan. And so I like this graphic. This is simple, but it tells a compelling story about Glendale's water supply history. A couple things to note here. In 1991, close to 90% of our water was imported, and that is what is shown by the gold segment there. Today, we've been able to reduce our imported supplies down to about 60 to 70%, primarily by increasing our local groundwater, and that is what is shown in the blue segment of the donut pie chart there. And so by 2045, we're looking to introduce a new water source for Glendale that is potable reuse, and we'll talk about how we're going to do that in the next couple of slides. But again, potable reuse is water that we can count on beyond conservation measures. This is water that is sustainable. This is water that is environmentally conscious. And this is water that will likely, in the next 10 years, be the most economical source of water for Glendale, with the increasing cost of imported supplies. And so with that, I want to talk about the different types of recycled water that we're looking to either install or expand on. And Chair Warner referenced a couple of these. Firstly is non-potable reuse. NPR is advanced treated wastewater that is used solely for irrigation, otherwise our purple pipe. And again, this accounts for 5% of Glendale's water supply. And we use this to irrigate our large green spaces, so our parks, our school fields, our country clubs, golf courses, things of that nature. Next, we have indirect potable reuse, okay, or IPR. And so this goes through an additional purification process, which Chair Warner mentioned. First is ultrafiltration, and then you have reverse osmosis, and then you have ultraviolet or advanced oxidation. And once it completes the purification process, it is then injected back into the groundwater basin or open source reservoir, where it acts as a natural buffer, sort of a natural filtration system for about 4 to 6 months before you can then reintroduce that into your distribution system. And then lastly, you have direct potable reuse, or DPR. This is the same purification process as IPR. The only difference is that you're able to bypass that natural buffer and you're able to reintroduce that directly into your distribution system. So this DPR is very conducive for water agencies who do not have access to groundwater basins or open source reservoirs. And so as part of this master plan, we're really looking at all of these types of projects. It's a broad scope. We left no stone unturned. So we're looking at local groundwater projects. We're looking at the variety of recycled water projects. We're looking at potentially partnering with other agencies, such as Metropolitan Water District, Los Angeles, City of LA. We're looking at stormwater capture projects. We're even looking at seawater desalination projects as well. And so step 2 is to identify and refine these projects based on a set of qualitative criteria, which we've completed. And so later this month, we will further evaluate and select certain projects to proceed with. And so as we focus on our water supply, which is extremely important, we certainly cannot neglect our existing infrastructure, which is as equally important, right? No sense in developing all this local supply water if we don't have a way to convey this water to our schools, our businesses, our homes. In GWP, we have a very complex water system comprised of about 400 miles of pipeline, 33 tanks and reservoirs, an equal amount of pump stations across 13 different pressure zones. And essentially, pressure zones are the different elevation ranges within our service area. And so again, we have about 400 miles of pipe. These pipes, some are over 80 years old. And so we're noticing an increase in the number of pipe breaks every year. We're noticing an increase in the severity of these pipe breaks every year, so they're becoming more and more catastrophic. And really, this was the impetus for undertaking a comprehensive infrastructure assessment. And so based on that assessment, this is the scoring criteria that we're using to assess these infrastructures. Physical condition or physical assessment scores 1 to 3 means that they're in fairly good condition, right? And so they were either recently rehabbed or replaced. So we're not really paying too much attention to these assets, meaning we're not going to prioritize these assets within our CIP projects. Conversely, assets that receive scores of about 4 to 5 means that they're at the end of their useful life, right? And so we want to prioritize these assets and bring them within the first couple of years of our CIP. And so speaking of assets, this pie chart represents the assessment results. And something worth noting here is over 60% of our assets, as represented by the red or the orange segment of this pie chart, scored a 4 or 5. And so that means that they're in dire need of rehabilitation or replacement, or they're just outright unserviceable. You know, either we're not able to acquire spare parts due to obsolescence, or we just don't have the technical expertise to work on these assets due to antiquated technology. And so this is just an example of how we would go about scoring a tank. For example, the tank on the far left scored a 5, meaning it's in poor condition, it's deficient, it's exhibiting severe corrosion, it's leaking profusely, and so there's a lot of structural defects with this particular asset. The tank in the middle, it scored a 3, average condition. Not so good, but also not too bad, right? It could use some work. And then to the far right, this scored a 1, meaning it's in good condition. As you can see, it was recently coated. And so again, this is one that we're going to put off in the outlier years.
And those are in Glendale, those 3 tanks?
Great question, Chair Warner. So funny story, we were actually trying to find a tank that was really bad to use as an example in Glendale, and we couldn't find one.
Oh.
And so
That's a relief.
Yes. So the tank to the far left is in Glendora, which is where I used to work. And so the tank in the middle and to the right are in Glendale. Okay.
Thank you.
And so capital improvement project, this is really a way for us to systematically and proactively rehabilitate our system through the implementation of various projects. And really, from a budgetary perspective, this also guides our funding decision. And so this is a CIP breakdown over the course of the next 20 years of all of the asset condition assessments that was done. And so that will amount to about $700 million. And as you can see, majority of that is dedicated to pipeline removal and replacement. And this is typical for water agencies. Pipeline replacements occupy a significant component of the CIPs, especially here in Glendale, in which we're looking to replace about 3 to 5 miles of pipeline every single year. Others worth noting are our facilities, right? So we have a number of pump stations that we have to replace. We have some reservoirs that are structurally defective. We also have about 11% dedicated to fire improvements. You can imagine the sensitivity of these fire improvement projects, and so we really want to front load a lot of these fire improvement projects to ensure that we have adequate protection, specifically in our foothill areas. And then others are new supplies. That's the recycled water projects that we talked about. We're allocating about 7% to those recycled water projects. And then lastly, I want to add that we really took a holistic approach to this initiative. And these are the 3 themes or the 3 pillars that we've embedded in every single process. Number 1 is community. I'm not sure if you're aware, commissioners, but Glendale is one of the few cities in Southern California that has a full operating utility, right? So meaning we have a water and power, right? So you have Pasadena, you have Burbank, you have Los Angeles, and I think you have Anaheim. But other than that, many other cities in Southern California receive their water from a special district, special water district, or a private utility. And so we're looking to leverage it. I think there's a sense of connection in being able to operate in the community in which you serve. And so one of the things that's really important to us is to be able to get feedback from the community. And part of that is coming to your commission and speaking to you about what we're doing, going to community events. As Chair Warner mentioned, we developed what we're calling a SWAG, Stakeholder Water Advisory Group. This is a community-based group from representatives from all walks of the community. We have people from the hospitals, small businesses, homeowners. And again, the intent of this is really to be able to engender engagement, receive feedback, and just sort of have that two-way dialogue in terms of this is what we're doing. Most importantly, this is why we're doing it. What do you think? What are some of the ways? What are we missing? And so community is very important for us. Secondly is partnerships. We cannot do this alone, nor do we want to. I always say we as cities, as water agencies, we have physical jurisdictional boundaries. Water does not. And so it's important that we're able to coalesce and we're able to work together and partner, develop these co-beneficial partnerships. I think it's extremely important for projects and initiatives such as this. And then lastly is reliability. That is truly the objective of this, is to ensure that we have a reliable water source and infrastructure, not just for us, but for generations to come. And so with that, I don't have a slide on schedule, but I do want to speak to that. And so we are anticipating on completing the infrastructure assessment and water supply assessment this month, actually. And so we, subsequent to that, we will start the COSA, or the cost of service analysis, in January. And that would be about a 6 to 7 month process. So that will take us into summer. And that is when we will come back to council to implement any potential rate adjustments that's needed to invest into these upgrades. And so with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions?
How often does your department meet with Public Works, Parks and Rec to coordinate your long-term projects and their needs?
Yes. Great question, Commissioner. So we've met with specifically our parks on several occasions. We've identified about close to 30 parks and medians that we can convert from potable to recycled water. And that will really save us a significant amount of water. Of course, we have to have constant communication with our Public Works team. Number one, they manage all of our wastewater that we're looking to purify. So we do have to have that constant communication with them in terms of, hey, this is what we're looking at. Do we have the capacity to be able to do this? What does that look like? And then eventually, once these projects hit the street, obviously we will want to continue that dialogue with both of those entities.
So in that long-term project plan, does it include extension or expansion of the Purple network in California?
Yes, it does. In Glendale.
In
right?
Glendale?
Yes, it does. And so that's actually one of the criteria that we're using to rate some of these projects is, do we already have a backbone pipeline in place that we can simply expand on, or do we have to start from scratch? And fortunately, we do have a complex purple pipe system that we can expand on. And I'll give you an example. Glendale Community College, they have a purple pipe system in which they can use to irrigate their green spaces. Right across the street in Verdugo Park, they're still irrigating with potable water. So it's really just a matter of expanding that purple pipe across the street to be able to also get them recycled water, because we have the capacity to do so. And so we're doing those types of assessments to see, number one, we want to get all of our schools. GUSD, we have an extensive partnership with them. And also, if there's a way that we can subsidize some of these to really alleviate some of that financial burden, we're looking to do so as well. But really, we are looking to expand our purple pipe network.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, I'll jump in. Thank you very much. Informative. Do you have a purple pipe map, or is there one on the website? Or if you could provide a link to David or something so we can.
I do.
Okay.
I do, Chair, Commissioner. However, we, just due to the sensitivity of some of our infrastructure, we don't typically share
Oh,
where our
Oh.
infrastructure is located. However, if that is something you want to see, I'm sure we can have a way to show you.
that's fine if it's,
Yeah.
it's considered sensitive information. I was just wondering, I assume it was placed strategically, so you like to know where parks and big users are, so, yeah.
Yes. So some of our biggest users are golf courses, city parks, and things of that nature. And so we definitely can provide a general map, but we do try to, as far as specifics in terms
Yeah.
of where those are located, it's
that's
very
fine.
sensitive.
The pumping stations are sensitive, by
Yes.
all means, scrub that. But developers in Glendale have access to the Purple Pipe network. I can't, imagine why the general public can't see it.
No,
But,
absolutely.
I mean, if their tax dollars is paying for it, the pumping stations,
Right.
that can impact the entire network, by all means, scrub that.
Right.
But I think the purple pipes, where they're available in the city,
Yep.
it should be available to the general public. The taxpayers are paying for it.
No, absolutely. And I think the point I want to make is, and perhaps just to clarify, our Purple Pipe system, they are connected to our pump stations, right? And so it depends on the level of detail you're looking for. If you're looking for just a general map, overview
General.
of just,
General.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
we can provide that to you.
Yeah, just general. And is that integrated, like Hag mentioned, so developers, when somebody comes with their proposal or wants to file a permit for construction or something, is that integrated into the city's internal process so that potential developers are aware that you might have access to Purple Pipes?
Absolutely. So we do have our engineering counter, our engineering team. They work very closely with developers and construction workers to be able to ensure, hey,
Right.
this is a facility, this is what you can connect to, this is what you cannot connect to.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Just a couple more. Roughly what percentage of water consumption goes to residential versus commercial, and do you break commercial down into like industrial or government?
Yes, Commissioner, we do. I don't have the percentage breakdown off the top of my head, but we do break it down by, we have industrial, we have public, which is parks, city parks. We have residential, and residential is broken down into single-family home and multifamily home. And then the other one is institution, which is primarily our schools.
Oh, okay. Okay. One thing with, is it AB 1527?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that doesn't apply to single-family residents,
Right,
but
it doesn't.
it would be interesting to find out what water consumption goes for external, for irrigation, if you have that for homes and businesses. Because we were talking about that, I think, at our last meeting. It would be great if we had some kind of incentive program to remove turf, because, grass that's non-functional, it generates green waste, which is very expensive to manage. And also, the only other thing, do we have, you might know this, I don't recall, do we have codes regarding the percentage, I think, of permeable surfaces, say on private property? Because we do want more, we want to reduce stormwater runoff, we want more water percolation. So do we have a city code that limits? I see a lot of, like, my neighbors have a completely concrete backyard. I see a lot of that around, and I'm just wondering, is that part of our overall strategy to remove impermeable surfaces so more water will percolate for groundwater replenishment?
Yes, Commissioner. So I'm not aware of any codes specific for residents. I do know for city parks, primarily our parks, if there are opportunities to have some sort of spreading mechanism to allow water to percolate into our groundwater basin, absolutely. That's part of the stormwater capture projects or initiatives, but this is primarily for public property, not necessarily residential.
Yeah, there's limits on how much non-permeable surfaces you can have in your front yard. Like, you can't just concrete the whole front yard. There has to be some, natural materials and so on. But backyards, I think, is pretty much whatever you want. It's not really regulated. So.
One more, if I may. You mentioned the stormwater capture. We've seen in Glendale some demonstration projects here and there. For example, there's a good one, corner of Harvard and Brand. Yeah. Beyond that, on a larger scale, do we do any stormwater capture in Glendale? North Glendale obviously has opportunity to do more of that than South Glendale, urban Glendale. And do we have any plans to increase it in the future?
Yeah, so currently, no. There's a couple of factors impacting that. So number one is trying to find adequate space to have a spreading ground can be a challenge in Glendale, particularly in South Glendale where you have high density population. And so we did scout out some potential spacing in North Glendale, but also you have to take into consideration, we operate out of the Verdugo Basin. Verdugo Basin is where the water will percolate down to. There's a couple challenges with the Verdugo Basin. It's not a healthy basin, meaning it's a leaky basin. And so what happens is we're not able to really contain and store water in the basin because we will lose it to the adjoining basin, which is the Raymond Basin to the south. And so we want to be very mindful of, for example, if we put, 100 acre-feet of water into the basin, are we going to get 100 acre-feet or are we going to get half of that, right? And so we don't want to lose that to the Raymond Basin because then we're just giving free water to Pasadena, who operates out of the Raymond Basin. Secondly, we also want to ensure that we don't have any groundwater contamination in the Verdugo Basin. And so that all impacts where you're able to have those stormwater capture projects. And also from groundwater modeling perspective, where does that water go? And so these are all things that we're looking at as part of this initiative. But right now, I can tell you, Commissioner, we're not having success in finding a great location to percolate water.
Have you explored any partnership opportunities with LA County because they control the washes, the catch basins that are there in case of a catastrophic rain? They manage those. I think if you haven't already, there's a partnership opportunity between the city and county. And to be perfectly honest with you, when we replenish the groundwater, and neighboring cities do as well, water doesn't really care which city the line they go under, and as long as we don't dump it in the washes and then it ends up in the ocean, because then no one's benefiting from it. So if you haven't already, I think LA County catch basins are the perfect place. For example, it's not in Glendale, but right next to Hahamanga, there's the basin that between JPL and Hahamanga, and during high rain season that fills up and it percolates down. But there's similar places like that in Glendale that LA County manages.
We will certainly consider that, Commissioner.
Mr. Oboglu, thank you for the presentation. It's good to see you again. I was thinking back on our trip to Nevada earlier this year. I had the pleasure of attending the Metropolitan Water District inspection tour, which was really eye-opening and learned a lot on that. It's pretty remarkable to see the massive pipelines, coming out of the river and up into the the desert, basically. So. Yeah, thank you for that. And if you had any hand in getting me to go on that. But I'm just thinking through kind of the presentation. One of the questions I was having, which you were kind of just speaking to, is the condition of the aquifers. And I was surprised to hear that we have as much groundwater here in this region, so 35%. And then I think your future model out into 2045, the projection was only, I think, 2% less or something like that. So to me, it seems like the groundwater is being recharged well and is in pretty good shape. Is that true?
Not necessarily, okay. Commissioner. I would say some of the challenges that we're having with our groundwater is the fact that it is leaking, and we don't really have sort of the latitude to do a lot with it. But what we're looking at doing is potential partnerships. And what that would look like is, although the Verdugo Basin doesn't really allow us to adequately store water and take out the same amount of water, perhaps we can develop partnerships with Pasadena where we can actually store water in their basin, right? And being that Pasadena and Glendale were both member agencies to Metropolitan Water District, perhaps there's an opportunity to do sort of a non-water exchange, non-groundwater exchange on that avenue. So these are the types of partnerships that we're looking at, is although we don't have the flexibility to store water in our basin, but perhaps we can store it in Raymond Basin, which is operated by Pasadena, or even the San Fernando Basin to our north, which is operated by Los Angeles. So those are the types of strategic partnerships that we're looking at doing.
Got it. Okay. So at the very least, we can rest assured that that groundwater source will continue to be
It will continue.
in some capacity. That's great. How this is kind of a big picture item, more for I guess the WMD, but for the Colorado River Compact and the negotiations that are going on there, and I guess how is that going to play out for Glendale? You know, I know there's a few a few milestones in the next few years for
Right,
that, but
right.
what does that look like for Glendale?
Yeah, no, great question. And just for background on that, for those who are unaware, there are 7 total states that operate out of the Colorado River, including California. Actually, 2 countries as well, including Mexico. And these rights were developed well over 100 years ago, and the Colorado River was over-allocated. It just so happened that they developed the rights when we had the wettest part of the wettest season in our region. And so today, that is in large why the Colorado River is depleting at such an alarming rate. And so the Bureau of Reclamation, the feds, they manage that river system. They've actually given all 7 states until 2026 to come up with an agreement to be able to essentially save water from the Colorado River. So basically, we have to conserve how much we're taking out of the Colorado River. Metropolitan Water District is a regional wholesale water agency, and so they provide water to 19 million people across Southern California, of course, including the city of Glendale, and that's where we get the 70% of our imported water from, half of that being the Colorado River. And so Metropolitan has committed to reducing how much they're currently taking out of the Colorado River significantly. And so how that will impact Glendale, in all honesty, Commissioner, that remains to be seen. It's really hard to tell because at the same time, we're also dealing with the conditions on the State Water Project system. So if we have to decrease from the Colorado River, we may have to turn to the State Water Project system, depending on the hydrology of that system. So there's a lot of variables up in the air right now, but it's really hard to tell how that will impact us. And that is why we're actually taking this route to be able to develop this local supply so we can have our own destiny, right? That is the intent of that.
Right. I think I recall that the California plan was to, I think that they submitted in the last round was something like 20% of a cut, which corresponded almost exactly with the amount of direct potable reuse that we're talking about here in Glendale. So that makes sense to me for sure. Thinking about let's see here, what else did I have? We talked about the rainwater, stormwater capture. So that's helpful, or I think that's a good discussion. Let's see. In terms of the replacement and the capital improvement project, are we looking at like how much beyond just replacing aging infrastructure are we looking at also kind of expanding and like building out a better network, a newer, more extensive network beyond just the purple pipe? I mean, is there more greater diameter pipe that we have to be putting in? Is there anything like that? Bigger pumping stations, more pumping stations?
Yeah, no, great question, Commissioner. So yes, the answer is yes. We're looking at a number of expansions beyond purple pipe on the potable system, specifically for fire protection. And so a lot of our fire restrictions, we have, deficient hydrants. They're due to small diameter pipes. And so we have 2, 4, 6-inch pipes in our system. And so part of the plan of the CIP over the course of the next 5 years is to expire these small diameter pipes and have a minimum of 8-inch pipes, which will increase flow for fire. This will also increase pressure for fire. And then also we're looking at installing permanent generators at some of our critical sites, right? We have several, about 3 pressure zones. I mentioned we had a total of 13 pressure zones. 3 of those pressure zones do not have adequate storage. And so what happens is if we were to ever lose power for whatever reason for an extended period of time, that would really disrupt our ability to provide reliable water. And so we are installing permanent generators at these sites that will automatically switch if we were to lose power. So that is another expansion that we'll be doing to our system. And then lastly, we're adding some pressure reducing valves. Not to sound esoteric, but PRVs are essentially a way to connect two pressure zones. And so in the event that one pressure zone, the lower pressure zone is losing, if they're fighting fires and they're losing pressure, they're losing flow, we can simply open up the valve and augment that flow and pressure from the upper pressure zones. So those are the types of expansions that we're looking at, Commissioner. As far as just expanding our system, we're built out, right?
Yeah.
Glendale is pretty much built out. And fortunately, we also have a number of redundancies within our system. So we can actually flow water if we're handicapped from one infrastructure, if we lose a pump station, if we lose a tank, if we lose a reservoir. And so at this point, it's just about hardening it against fire protection and making sure we have the flexibility to, move water as we need to.
Okay, thank you. You had reminded me, I was thinking about the pressure regulators, and actually I just recently had to replace the pressure regulator on our condo, which I never expected to have to do that, but it was the kind of thing where you turn the water on and it just was like jetting out way too hard. So I learned a lot about it. I actually found a map of or ended up calling GWP to say, what is the pressure of our water supposed to be? Anyways, it was a whole thing. I'm really excited about the direct potable reuse. I really think that's an opportunity for this region. I know it turns some people off. I think we just have to kind of get over it somehow eventually. But we had, Chair Warner speak to this already, but I'm just trying to think, what are some of the, trying to think of a question here, what would be maybe the soonest we could consider having direct, that water here within our network? Is it a matter of just deciding to do it, or do we have to build out the infrastructure and wait some number of years before we can actually get that?
Right. And, a lot of the attendees of the tour asked the same question, right? So the Planet Horizon for our master plan is 2045, 20 years from now. So really anywhere within the 20 years, generally speaking, what the State Water Resources Control Board, if you're looking for DPR, you have to have a demonstration plan, which is the one we visited. We visited too. And you have to have a demonstration plan and essentially prove that you can adequately treat this water for about 4 years, right? So that's a minimum, 4 years. You have to have a demo plan. And then after that, you just have to go through a very rigorous permitting process to be able to build that out to full scale. And so Las Virgenes, they're actually in the process of they're starting the process of building out their full scale because this is their 4th year of having a demo plant. This is Metropolitans, I believe this is their 3rd year, and so they will eventually build that out to a full-scale project. And so for us, as far as Glendale, it really, right now, we are in discussions with the city of Los Angeles because they also have a Pure Water Los Angeles, very close to our recycled water plant. And so there could potentially be an opportunity to partner with them, right? And sometimes it's not just shared infrastructure, but shared knowledge, shared experiences. Even just, hey, what did it take? What was the permitting process like? What are some of the things that we should avoid? What should we look for? But to answer your question, it could be anywhere between 2030 and 2045, depending on how quickly we can establish those partnerships. I don't believe that is something Glendale can do by itself. I do think we have to have a partnership in order to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. Thank you so much. This has been so informative and quite interesting. You mentioned about capital improvements, and I heard you mention several times that our water infrastructure needs to be fire ready or ready in case of a fire. And you also mentioned that there's a budget we have over 20 years or a projection. Do you have a sense of what we need to spend in the next year, 2 years, 3 years to be fire ready so that we're in a good place if we have a fire and our water supply is tested?
Great question. So right now, I would say, we have that $700 million figure. It's not a linear figure, meaning over the course of the next 20 years, we're not going to spend 700 divided by, what's that, 35 million a year. A lot of those fire projects, Commissioner, will be front-loaded. So we're really hoping to knock out those projects within the first 3 years, 3 to 4 years. And we undertake these master plans every 5 years. So every 5 years, we're prioritizing projects. Okay, well, how are we performing? What do we need to bring up to the front? What do we need to push to the back? with the exception of fire projects. Those will always be in the front. And so I would imagine if we can spend anywhere from $60 to $70 million on fire improvement projects, this is upsizing, upsizing pipelines. This is installing permanent generators. This is installing pressure reducing valves. Over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, we should be in great shape. And I said that we are in great shape, but I think that will ensure that we will be in better shape in the next 3 to 5 years.
Great, thank you.
So I also wanted to start with a question about fire. I know it's on a lot of people's minds as of late. So are zones that may have been deemed more prone to fires, are they being prioritized in this development? I mean, under the condition assessment results, it says that 35% of Glendale assets are unserviceable. If those are near fire-prone areas, are those being prioritized for replacement or refurbishment?
Yeah, so as far as fire, we actually go by the fire code, which is a 2022 California Fire Code. And that really is a code that stipulates, conditions for fire. So it stipulates conditions around minimum and maximum pressure, storage, velocity, but most importantly, fire flow. And that is based on population density. And so, for example, high density residential areas, which is primarily South Glendale, each of our hydrants, we have to be able to have a flow of 2,500 GPM for a duration of 3 hours. As you get into the less densely populated areas, that flow decreases, duration decreases. And so that is really the criteria by which we design these projects and we prioritize these projects. And so it's kind of counterintuitive because if you look at the fire-prone areas, it's typically in the mountains, it's typically, Verdugo and San Gabriel Mountains. But the state is more so concerned with life, right? And so they want to make sure that we harden our fire protection in the highest consequence of failure. So that's the hospitals, the schools, the high density residential areas. And so that's really the criteria that we use. And to answer your question, yes, we are prioritizing a lot of those projects.
Then I had another question about the condition assessment. So this might be a little thing, but the numbers on the pie chart add up to 950 assets. And then the bullet point says that 948 assets were ranked.
Yeah, so it was actually 948. Our team put 950 just to make it a pretty number. I said I actually want the exact number of assets, and so it was 948.
Yeah, and then the percentages add up to 99. Was there like one or two very good condition ones that just were excluded from the pie chart?
I would have to go back and take a look at that, and I'm happy to. I can circle back with you on that. And you're referring to this pie chart?
The earlier one, the condition assessment results pie chart.
So the percentages add up to 99. Yeah, I can go back and take a look at that to see what we're missing.
Yeah, I assumed it was just a rounding error, but yeah. My other question is that it just strikes me that there are no very good condition assets, like assets that have been very recently replaced. Are there not a high enough number of them to be included on the chart?
So if they have recently been replaced, we're actually not including those assets. And so these are really assets that have not been replaced in the recent history, right? And so we're looking at pipelines, pump stations, tanks, things of that nature.
And when was the assessment made?
This was completed late this summer, and so this was a 2-week period in which we had our consultant team, our operations team, and our engineers team. Over the matter of 8 years, we visited 52 facilities. 8 years, 8 days, sorry.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question actually has to do with the same slide too. I was just a little haunted by the whole condition assessment and how 60% is either unserviceable or barely above that. So if we, just fast forwarding 50 years from now, we've put in this, fancy high-tech system to recycle water to the point that it can be drinkable. what happens when that is, is that going to become unserviceable at some point? I mean, what are the safeguards that, because, if you're trying to get past the ick factor, people want to know that that kind of equipment will be better managed than what this equipment is, the state that this is. So they have to be able to trust that, the water will continue to be safe over time, even though what we have right now, there's not a single, asset that's considered in good condition. It's just, I think the average person would be a little nervous looking at this pie chart and thinking of that.
Right. And so this is really a result of deferred maintenance as far as our current assets and condition assessments. And we were very transparent and honest, right, in terms of what we need to do. Now, in the future, if we were to get a purification system or infrastructure or plant, yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Generally speaking, again, I say that this is not something Glendale can do by itself, because you have to have operators that have certain expertise to be able to operate this plant. And generally speaking, you also have to have contractors as well to be able to maintain this plant. You have to have around-the-clock testing, sometimes on-site, to be able to ensure water quality and preserve water quality at all times. And so, to your point, Chair Warner, yes, we will definitely, that is something that we're looking to partner with other agencies to be able to ensure that we're providing the level of service that needs to be provided with those types of infrastructure that is purification plants.
Okay, and I assume the EPA would be all over that as well, and making sure that cities are, because, this is being rolled out all over the place, so they'll probably need a whole new department just to deal with the recycled water quality.
Absolutely. And they do. They have actually created a new department, the State Water Resources Control Board from the state level, as well as EPA from the federal level, to be able to manage these types of, recycled water, purified water projects.
I used to work at LADWP, and we had a whole group that did nothing but water testing, stir the tanks, take the before and after samples. It's a whole process. So you get test results constantly as far as the water purity.
Great, yeah, I just think that's the kind of thing that it wouldn't hurt to have a second slide in there somewhere about, this is what we would do to, make, to help reassure the public that things wouldn't get into the, unserviceable range, so.
Absolutely.
Suggestion there. Okay, any other questions?
Just one. Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. One question about the pipes. Do they still have to be all concrete, or can you use liners of any type when you've got pipes that are deteriorating?
Yeah, so majority of our pipes, the ones that were installed in the 20s, 30s, 40s, they're cast iron pipe. And so they're very brittle. Fortunately, we don't have highly corrosive soils, so we don't experience any type of outer deterioration. It's more inner. But we are replacing, and cast iron pipes typically have, useful lives of about 50 years. And so you can imagine they're well past their useful life. Yes. And so we're replacing it with ductile iron pipe. Ductile iron pipe is more flexible, it's more durable, but also it has a useful life of about 80 to 100 years, right? And so, and it's also more conducive for the types of soil that we have here in Glendale. And we have been replacing our pipes with ductile iron pipes since the 90s.
I was reminded of something else from home. I live in a condo with a cast iron sewer line, and it's condo built in the 60s, and we're looking at basically having to replace it, which is very unfortunate, because that's going to be a lot of money. But yeah, we already did that. My question is, I guess, within all of this, are there, within your portfolio, are there opportunities, new opportunities to kind of work on conservation and like ways in which we can, as consumers, like, is there more there that we can do? I know there's a lot that's gone into like reducing flow from faucets and showers and toilets, et cetera, but like, is there anything else that additional work to be done there that can be, yeah.
Water use efficiency is always important, right? Making that a California way of life is actually a law, right? And so And I will say, Glendalians, we've been doing a pretty good job with conservation. I mean, if you look at our water use over the course of the past 2 or 3 decades, we've actually decreased our water use since the 1990s, despite an increase in population since the 1990s. And so we're doing all we can and part of that is not always, better water use efficiency practices. Some of that is just virtue of having more water use efficient appliance, right? Low flow toilets, low flow dishwashers, things of that nature. But also, to your point, I think we can always do more to conserve water. And sometimes it's something as simple as your daily practices. But I make this point of emphasis. The issues and the challenges that we have today is really, it's not a water conservation issue. I mean, the numbers show that. It's a water adaptation issue, right? Due to what we're facing from our climatically challenged environment. And so that I want to make that point of emphasis.
I had a question about purple pipe. I remember a friend that's a landscape architect was mentioning that the purple pipe systems tend to be a little more corrosive on the equipment. And I don't know if they're looking at maybe adding something to the water to help with that, or to find different types of materials to keep that from happening. Is that anything you've heard of?
I don't know that purple pipes are any more corrosive, but we do take the necessary measures, all of our purple pipes, to make sure that we manage any types of corrosion that may be caused by the type of water. But it also really just depends on the treatment of the water, right? So at the point of treatment, we can add certain, chemicals to sort of decrease that hardness, if you will. But that has not been an issue here in Glendale.
Yeah, the person telling me doesn't practice very much in Glendale, but I just had that in the back of my mind and thought, because you're trying to conserve water over here, but then if you're having to constantly replace equipment,
Right.
then things start evening out. So I'm glad to hear that it's something that they're looking at or aware of and so on. So any last questions?
Oh, this might be a dumb question, but regarding how you were talking about how the city may subsidize or encourage private entities to adopt this infrastructure, would that be split between the city? Would this responsibility fall on the city, or would it be shared between private entities and the city through subsidies?
Yeah, no, great question. So when I say subsidize, I want to, again, it's GUSDs, specifically schools, and so public entities. But there are a lot of grants that are available for these types of initiatives from the state, from the feds. And so we are going after those grants. And that is really what we're looking for, to be able to help or encourage, schools, and to your point, even private entities, to be able to utilize our purple pipe, our recycled water. And so that is really what we're looking at, is if we can leverage any type of grant funding from the state, we will. And I think the challenge with that is a lot of the grants, as many of you may know, they're very meticulous in how you have to apply for them, but also you have to have a shovel-ready project, right? And so right now we're in a very initial planning phase. And so when we get to that point, we're very hopeful that we can leverage some of those grants to be able to encourage our schools financially to be able to switch over. One more.
Every time you answer, you're prompting us to ask another question, because this is an interesting presentation. We have some legacy apartment and condo buildings in Glendale that have a master meter. And my personal observation is that whenever there's a master meter, people don't really care how much they use. The water consumption is higher per capita when it's a master meter. Let my neighbor worry about it. I'm gonna use as much as possible. What's the plan moving forward? Do we just, accept it as a given because we can't go back and fix it? These are buildings built in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Right.
Anything beyond that is individualized meters. What do we do? What's your opinion?
Well, that's a great question, and I think I would have to also defer to my friends in the Community Development Center. But I will say, when when you have those types of legislatures or strategies that have been grandfathered in, sometimes it can be an arduous task to try to go back and change it. And so, Commissioner, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know if that's a good thing so that we can stop or if that's a bad thing, but I don't have an answer for you, Commissioner. But definitely that is something that I can bring up to our community development group to see if that is something that we can look into.
I was really hoping that you're smarter than me and you would have the answer, and because I've grappled with this as well. The once the infrastructure is built, to repipe an entire building, and who pays for it? Yeah. Thanks.
Just to segue off of that, that would be interesting to find out how much more the estimated per capita usage is when it's a master meter. I lived in a building like that years ago, and it made me mad to no end because I didn't realize my utilities were just going to be divided evenly by square footage, regardless of your actual consumption. It would be interesting to know what it would cost to go in and repipe, put individual meters, and I assume flow meters are probably not feasible in that situation at all.
Right. Well, we can have flow meters depending on, it's a case by case. But I just, a point of clarification, Commissioner, when you say repipe, are you talking about the internal plumbing of these condos or just?
The way they're built, if it's, let's say, a 3-story building, the bathroom gets the water from the basement from another pipe, and the kitchen gets it from another pipe. It's not a single source that brings it into the unit. It's multiple sources based on whatever was most efficient for the builder. And so it would be very difficult.
Yeah, and so as far as understood, and point well taken, but as far as the city, our public water distribution system, it is just to the meter, right? And so we certainly have a level of control over the type of meter that we install based on the service that's being rendered, based on the size of the property, and other variables. But as far as the internal plumbing, the configuration of how it's plumbed, we have zero control over that, and our control is just to the meter.
It would be interesting to find out how many of those kinds of buildings there are. I'm sure there's a way of telling, because there'd only be one utility bill for a whole apartment complex. So that would be one way of being able to tell. So I just wonder how big of a issue it is. I know there is a lot of older housing stock here in Glendale, but I don't know how many of them are apartments and were done that way. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Of course. Yeah.
I had a question about pipes bursting. So in another pie chart, the cost breakdown one, where we see 56% of spending will be for pipeline R&R. If we could visualize like emergency repairs versus preemptive repairs on this chart, how much, because I imagine like repairing a burst pipe after it's burst would be substantially more expensive than just repairing it in the first place. If we could visualize like what share of this chart would these emergency repairs represent versus these preemptive ones.
Right. So perhaps a better way to visualize that is we have per unit, so I can give you a price of really what it costs to proactively replace a pipe per unit. And per unit is typically 1,000 linear foot of pipe. You have to have hydrants 300 feet apart. You have to have, valves 500 feet apart. So we take that ensemble, and that is per unit. And so if we can proactively replace these pipes, we have a plan, design, and implemented projects, it'll be about $800 per unit. If we were to react to a main break urgently, that number would almost quadruple, right? And so that's really the difference is, yes, it costs money right now to replace it, but you're really saving money over time, because every time you have to go there in the middle of the night, you have to dig up the street, you have to install traffic control, sometimes you have to call contractors out, that price really doubles or triples or quadruples.
Thank you.
Last call for questions or comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, did you have any?
Yes. No, thank you. I will say this is a really great group. This is so much fun, so I really appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the interest. It really means a lot to have people who care about their infrastructure, their water supply, and so thank you. Thank you very much.
Maybe this should go on the city's website, so residents can see it too.
Great. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it, Chisholm.
Thank you, Chisholm. So it's going to be hard to follow that, but next item is Sustainability Office updates. So we do have a few updates to provide the Commission. So on October 11th, our office tabled at Fremont Park grand reopening to engage with the community members and share information about the city sustainability programs. On October 18th, our ex officios commissioners volunteered at the Wilderness Workday, held every third Saturday of the month at Duke Majan Wilderness Park. The ex officios help clean trails, water native plants and trees, and remove invasive species. So I don't know whether you want to tell the Commission any more than that. Commissioner Pinkerton and Etienne Ozark from our Integrated Waste Management team were part of the people who, when we hosted our environmental film series, featured screening of Plastic Earth. Commissioner Pinkerton and Mr. Ozark joined panelists, and I think in a very good Q&A, and I think people were very appreciative of the expertise of Commissioner Pinkerton and the expertise of Mr. Ozark. And I think a total of 27 people joined that, and I'd like to make a special thanks to Nora for organizing that and setting it up. She did a great job, and hopefully this will be one of many more we can do.
Saved us because none of the tech was working.
Yeah. Will there be more of those, David?
We intend to do more.
Okay, great.
We tabled at the Fall Festival at Pacific Park, again engaging residents and families about Glendale's sustainability initiatives. And then on October 27th, our office partnered again with AGZA, the American Green Zone Alliance Association, to conduct outreach with local landscapers, continuing our efforts to support compliance with the city's gas-powered leaf blower ban. The team with AGZA walked landscapers through the rebate process, and they will follow up with them to assist them in acquiring the necessary paperwork and connecting with the dealer to acquire electrical leaf blower equipment. I can tell you by attending the outreach events, that is one question people keep talking to us about, like, this is a great thing that you have with this electric leaf blower. How do we let the city know that people are out of compliance and everything? So that's conversations we have all the time. I remiss, please excuse me, I forgot to mention this earlier, but Commissioner Pinkerton asked two particular questions. One was regarding grass clippings, and do we capture that data? We reached out to our community services and parks. They do not collect grass clippings, but they use mulching mowers and cut and drop the clippings. So they purposely don't do that. And then the presentation by Chisholm reminded me of this also. Commissioner Pinkerton asked for water consumed for irrigation in 2024, and we did receive that information back from Glendale Water and Power. Roughly 178 million gallons of recycled water we use for irrigation in the cities. They provided that information. They got all that information from their meters. So we do have the Excel spreadsheet, and if Chisholm allows that, we can share that with the Commission, but I'd want to check that with him first. And that is the updates from the Sustainability Office.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the report?
Madam Chair, there was one additional update, and that is that the AC to HP ordinance was introduced last Tuesday night. We'll come back on the 18th.
Okay, that's the REACH code about having people upgrade to electrical water heaters or water systems, I guess, heat pumps instead.
Heat pumps,
Yeah,
from
if-
AC to heat pump.
Yeah, if they're replacing or upgrading their air conditioning.
Correct.
Correct.
And
Not the
Mr.
water
Jones
heaters.
has all the details on that.
And not to get political, but there's, on social media, there's people that are on the notion that this is a mandate and people are going to impose mandates on residents to take away your stove. That is not correct.
There's a whole campaign on Nextdoor. I get multiple messages a week saying that they're forcing us to get rid of our gas furnaces, et cetera. I don't know if the city responds to those, but a fact sheet might be helpful to counter the misinformation.
David, you may
So,
have missed
sorry,
it.
excuse me, Commissioners, we do have somebody on the line who wants to speak to us about the Water Master Plan. So if I could respond to him first, because he has been waiting.
Great.
Mr. Michaels, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners and staff. I'm sorry that I missed speaking to Manager Obidugo, but I did want to go ahead and talk on the master plan. I was fortunate to be a member of the SWAG group and participate in that process. One of the comments I made throughout that process was to increase the transparency and be able to understand the metrics. Looking at the slide that was presenting the water portfolio, listing the percentages of the water use, I did ask in future presentations that they show metrics of actual water use so that we can determine whether or not the amount of imported water is increasing, decreasing. The information that was presented in the report tonight doesn't go ahead and clarify that. The last issue I wanted to make the Commission aware of is dealing more with the equity as the COSA comes forward. There are two water districts in Glendale. The Crescenta Valley is serviced by the Crescenta Valley Water District, which does have several projects in partnership with GWP, such as the Rockhaven Well and others. But I just wanted to go ahead and address as that goes forward that there is more partnership available with GWP, not just with the county or the city of LA, and that those factors do need to be considered in the COSA when rates are discussed. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Grant. So do we have any other comments?
We do
Dave-
not.
David, we were mentioning here while you took that call that unfortunately on social media, there's this notion that what's proposed is that a mandate and they might be taking away grandma's stove and government's going to force you to go electric. Wonder if it would be helpful for the Sustainability Commission or the city to come up with a one-pager explaining what this does, to dispel some of the myths out there that, what is a REACH code? It's not a mandate.
And there were references also to the public benefits
Well,
funds, how those are being,
Yeah,
expended.
that was kind of strange, but a REACH code is a mandate. It goes above and beyond the building code. So it's a requirement if it's adopted.
Existing, businesses and residences that have gas stoves, city's not going to go in and take your stove away and force you to go electric.
Well, this specific
doesn't
REACH
do
code
that.
is about
Correct.
furnaces and so on, and water, hot water, and it has nothing to do with stoves. But yeah, I mean, to your point, people get nervous about, people wanting to tell them what kind of appliance they can use and so on. So I can understand that. But I had questions myself when this came up, like, do you need a permit to do all this? And what length of time would someone expect to have to spend waiting, if their AC goes out in the middle of a heat wave? That's a pretty big deal for people. And so if that triggers this whole thing about, oh, now I can't, I'll be out of water as well as, air conditioning and so on. So, it takes an expensive problem and makes it even more expensive. So, I can understand that. But I was wondering, with our caller, he was commenting on the plan that did Chisholm, did you want to address what Mr. Michaels had to say, or?
Yeah, no, thank you, Madam Chair. Absolutely. Once we commence the coastal process, we will be sure to, the intent is to continue to have dialogue with the SWAC committee, get their input to the extent possible, and implement that. And I know he mentioned a comment about COSA, and the previous comments was about increasing partnership with Crescenta Valley Water District. Certainly, we've been in discussions with them to see what type of partnerships are available, not just with them, but also Foothill Municipal Water District. We will also take a look at LA County. And so we are looking at all partnerships available.
Great, thank you.
To Commissioners Cartini and yes, we will and can develop a simple one-page flyer just explaining what the REACH code does and how, if it does get adopted, how it would work and who would be affected by it. So we can do that. And then the other question was?
Well, about, some people want to know, like, would that affect if they want to put in one of those split systems, those ones that go up on the wall and have the other unit out there for just conditioning, usually just one room or something, a ductless system, so it wasn't totally clear. Yeah, I think it has to have something to do with the ducts in order to count, but that's not obvious by the way that it was written. So people just need to understand it better too, so that the rumor mill doesn't fill in the voids of information, and then everyone gets worked up and all that kind of thing.
No, we can clarify that. I mean, if you install a ductless heat pump, you're installing a heat pump anyway. So, but yes, we can clarify all those points.
And then the process, like, do you need a permit to do that? And are they trying to develop? I know sometimes with like new regulations, whatever, they try to get a list of vendors. The city does have certain lists of they're not endorsing them, but they're like ones that are getting on a list that have been vetted at least to some extent, so that people will have someone to call, because there are a lot of installers that aren't yet able to, they haven't switched over to doing the heat pump kinds of installations.
So it is our intention to develop an information support page with all that type of information, so people who wishing to either on replacement or want information about how they can replace the AC system with a heat pump system. We want to provide them information about plumbers who can do that, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to try and develop this whole information support system around this ordinance if it does get adopted.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Question, David. Are you able to share any upcoming things that might be coming from your office for council? Just curious. I know this heat pump was something you were kind of working on the side, but is there anything else exciting coming down the pipeline?
I'm not sure exciting.
Yeah.
So yes, we do have to go back to council. As you know, beginning of this year, we went to council regarding some plastic waste reduction regulations. We've been doing a lot of research and talk with Clinton and talking to a number of organizations. We're actually right now just trying to get together a feedback group. I'm representing food and beverage providers in the city to provide us some final information on these potential regulations. So we will be going back to council with that. I don't exactly have a timeline just yet. But apart from that, there is no, we haven't been directed to provide or develop any ordinances beyond the ACT heat pump REACH code at this point. Our focus as an office is now going to be towards implementation of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan to try and get that up and running. So a lot of that would be internal work, setting up the internal teams, etc., looking for grant funding, identifying those phase one projects that we can work on internally and everything. So that's going to be the focus of our work over the next 12 months.
Great. What was the status of the dashboard? I think you last meeting had said that you were in the works to get a contract.
So
signed for that.
we went out, we received 3 proposals. We've actually just analyzed those 3 proposals, and we do have one company that we think will meet our needs. So then we just need to go out and develop the whole contract process to try and get them on board.
Great. And then lastly, I know this time of year, normally we have our work plan development. Is that going to be at next month's meeting, or in the new year? When does that happen usually?
That will be in the new year. Nora and I are currently just looking at that process to see if we can improve it slightly. So once we have some ideas and potentially how we can improve that process, that will be our next step. Bringing that process to the commission for discussion and input, and then once we receive your input, then going back to developing the work plan. But we're just trying to figure out how we can develop the work plan that closely aligns with the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, closely aligns with grants that are out there, and then also closely aligns with the legislative issues that we've been talking about recently. So we're trying to look at those 3 buckets and see how we can develop that round, developing the work plan.
And lastly, I think our January meeting is for the first of the year, is on the first of the year. So that is a holiday. So I think just flagging that for potential rescheduling. I guess I would
You're not coming in?
recommend maybe we do if the chair is willing.
Yes, I was just looking at the calendar myself. It was like, oh, the holidays are upon us. So, yes, the January 1st is also the first Thursday. So, is everyone available the 8th, do we think? I know it's ways out, but is that like a date we could at least explore as far as, okay.
I will not be here on the 8th. I've got my 92-year-old mother flying out from the United Kingdom, so I need to look after her. So Nora will be your point person for that commission meeting.
Okay.
Great. Well,
Could I respond briefly to something you said, David? If you could tell Nora, we've got a contact at a hospital that's a big buyer of foodware, and I will try it again to reach that person, see if we can meet and talk about what they're doing. And then also, I thought this was in 2 things I learned at the film screening we had the other day. Microplastics, your big exposure for microplastics in food comes when you open the plastic bottle or container because your little pieces break off. So that's where your big initial exposure comes from. So I wanted to let everybody know. And then also the Burbank Airport, which is co-owned by Glendale and Pasadena, does have to comply with Burbank's reusable foodware mandate for dine-in meals, which goes into effect in 2026. So I plan to reach out to, I got the name of the food vendor there, it's one company. I'm just want to explore, are they going to do dishwashing on site? Are they going to put that in the new expanded terminal? Or are they going to be working with third-party entity to provide reusable dishware? So I'll let you know what I find out. But I thought that was a good thing to know, is that that airport's going in that direction. Thank you.
Next, adjournment.
would someone like to move to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
A second.
Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
My body with your fingertips. I know what you're feeling and I know you wanna say it. I do too, but we gotta be patient. 'Cause someone like